This is going to be a fun lesson, and it's going to be a funny lesson, and it's not going to be long at all. But I just wanted to come and talk to Izzy and tell Izzy, brother, it's a shame that you're so hard headed that you won't even listen to the pages of the Bible anymore. hmm Israel Doctrine said the other day, and thank you to you all that watched the video uh, and the correction for him, which we talked about and told you who this serpent is. Because it's definitely not a serpent, not a snake, but it's a being more subtle than any beast of the field that Yahuwah had made. hmm We went through Matthew 13, chapter 13, and we dealt with who was the one way even in the beginning when man fell asleep. When man fell asleep, who planted all of those tares in the Lord's harvest and in the master's field? We found out who was sneaking around way back here in Genesis 2 from the parable that Christ spoke in Matthew chapter 13. hmm An enemy did this. A man did this, my book says. Would you like to see it? I'll show it to you just for the sake of showing it to you. Matthew, book of Matthew, chapter 13, verse 30. Matthew chapter 13. Excuse my hands are a little bit dry because I can't grab the pages. Matthew 13. I think we're at it now. Matthew chapter 13. And I wanna also, we might as well add this to the lesson since we're here. We might as well go here and read what is in verse 35. That it might be fulfilled at the creative power, which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. From the foundation of the world. From the foundation of the world. This is what Christ is doing when he speaks in parables. And it is a quotation from the prophets. In the book of Psalms. There it is right at the bottom of the page. 78 and 2. You'll see this quote. Okay? What Christ is saying here is these parables that he's talking about, the parable of the tare and the wheat, and the parable of the rain of the heavens being like leaven, and all of those things here in Matthew 13. He's clearly telling you that I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things that which have been kept secret from the what? Foundation of the world. Now, without going back to Genesis at this point, but we're going back, but just as a point, we want to stick on this and add to this at this point. We want you to know that in this very chapter, you don't have to guess anymore. Because not only does he speak in parables, things that have been hidden and kept secret from the foundation of the world, but he tells you, the disciples in this very chapter ask him, listen, what were you talking about when you said such and such and so and so? And Christ goes ahead and tells them the exact meaning of these parables. Like, listen, let's go to this verse. Then Yahusha sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his Talmidim, or his taught ones, the disciples, came unto him, saying, declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. Tell us what it's about, so Israel doctrine won't mess our head up. So that old serpent in Israel doctrine won't sow seeds of tares in our hearts and minds. So Christ says, verse 37, he answered them and said, or he answered and said unto them, he that sows good seed is the son of Adam. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. Good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. Stop. What is wheat? Wheat is something you definitely want to harvest. What is a tare? Tare is definitely something that mimics or is a counterfeit version of wheat, but good for nothing. The botanical name of wheat is darnel. The scripture in the parable tells you that the Lord would send his reapers into the harvest, and his reapers would gather the wheat and into the master's barns, but the children of the wicked one, would be thrown into the fire. hmm So we know that the good seed, it says, are the children of the kingdom. That's the wheat. But the tares are the children of the wicked one, and those will be thrown into the fire. Now, verse 39 says, the enemy that sold them, listen, the enemy that sold them is the devil. hmm The enemy that was way earlier. Verse 35, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. We're talking about what happened to the Lord's field, or in Genesis, it's called a garden. But what is the garden? What is the field? What is the world? Christ just said it. Read it back. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sold them is the what Israel doctrine? The devil. The devil is the same thing in Genesis chapter 3 as a serpent, a lowly being, a whisperer, a supplanter, a trickster, an enemy of man, an enemy of man, a wise being, more subtle than any beast of the field that Yahweh Elohim had made. Who is that enemy? Who is that man? The enemy that sold them is the devil. Halel. And if you want to get technical, Halel bin Yalal Shachar. That's the goddamn devil's whole term that denotes him. I know y'all ain't never heard the devil's first, last, middle, and surname, but that's what it is. And that's the enemy. And that's the one that sowed the tares. Verse 39, the harvest is the end of the world, or the end of the age. And the reapers are his angels, or are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world or this age. The son of Adam shall send forth his angels, and at that creative power, Christ, the Word, the Logos, they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. At the word of the Most High, the et, that creative power, sending angels forth to gather out of his kingdom all things that offend. Gather all of the terror and all of the darnel, and them which do transgress the law, the Torah, and shall what? And shall cast them into a furnace of fire. This is what is in the book of Revelation called the lake of fire. The lake of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth, Israel doctrine. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. And I want to suggest that our poor brother Izzy don't have ears. He don't have the Holy Spirit. He didn't know that to understand the parable of the tares and the wheat, all you got to do is understand who sowed the tares. Ask the proper question that the disciples asked. And then go here and find out what Christ was talking about. Now let's jump back to Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3 again declares the serpent, this enemy, been here all of this time, tricking, supplanting, counterfeiting, planting wicked seeds, seeds of discord, opposite the word of the Most High. In the Most High's garden, in his field, in his harvest. In his harvest. Now, let's go for the caveat. The caveat is simple. I just wanted to do a little bit more teaching that this brother here just will not give the people or is not capable of. Israel doctrine said the serpent or the devil is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And he said the tree of knowledge of good and evil didn't grow out of the ground. Why? Because he said the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the devil. But we have a clear contradiction with him saying that, right? Nowhere in Genesis chapter 2 or 3 does the tree of the knowledge of good and evil speak. And indeed, it says that the tree of knowledge of good and evil, like all of the other trees of the garden, grew from the ground, or grew from what? The world or the earth, even the age or the time. What is the ground? What is the field? The field in Matthew 13:30 is the world. So now, since this brother is telling us that the tree is not even analogous to earth anymore, just as this fallen cherubim, Khalil bin Yalal Shachar, is not of this earth. He is fallen into this dimension. And that's why he's here in Genesis chapter 3. And ain't nobody had to make him. He was not created here. He's not from here. And he's not a tree. Let's read it to prove it. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden. And there he put at that creative power the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's talking about all of these trees planted, and Yahweh Elohim caused them to grow from the ground, from the world, from the earth. And the river went out of Eden to water at that creative power, the garden. And from thence it was parted and became into four heads. Now we're talking about rivers. These rivers feeding what? Trees. Feeding what? Trees. Irrigating what? The ground, the land, the earth, the garden. What happens when you have irrigation and photosynthesis on that level and seeds planted? You get trees growing. Literal trees even. Now, we can get into the more metaphysical conversation of what the fruit is. But I'm telling you, this book says the trees grew out of the ground, but the fruit can be a produce, not necessarily a literal fruit. So fruit in its idiomatic conveyance can be a duality. But this tree, it says, grew, Yahweh made every tree to grow out of the ground that is pleasant for food and pleasant to the sight. But I'm going through all of that to just make it plainly clear that a tree is not a being. A tree grows from the ground with water and photosynthesis. But this thing was never created on the earth, but was here even before man, sowing fake counterfeit tares. Israel doctrine said the serpent is the tree. He even went so far as to say that the tree speaks. Now I'm going to tell you, nowhere in Genesis 2 or Genesis chapter 3 does a tree speak. But I'll tell you, Hawa spoke, Eve, and Adam spoke, and the Most High spoke. But a tree didn't speak. The serpent did. And the serpent is talking to Eve about the tree. So how can the serpent be the tree? That's very simple, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, do we have to do this again? Now, if you all would like, I'll come back and teach you the Torah science that has to do with the more esoteric and metaphysical teachings of Genesis. If you like to do it, we can go into it and we'll really show you what this tree in the garden really, really is. We'll go into it. But as we stand today on this particular level, the tree is never speaking, and the tree is not the devil. Okay? Okay? Now, Israel, you go get you a stand back, man, and chill out. Get you a Goodies headache powder, man, and chill out, brother. That Bible down for you go crazy.